The biggest compliment for me is if our show manages to get to the imagination of the person watching, and then maybe sometimes later suddenly he remembers one part or so. For me that it worked because suddenly it transformed into something else in someone. But if none of that happens and the person just has a good time, it's fantastic too. What is disastrous is if it doesn't work. That's the gamble too. It's you take that risk every night that it may not work. Not knowing if it's going to work or not, and going with a lot of faith into it. When we were little, they used us a lot in magical tricks because we could fit in boxes and be very small. There was a number with a cage, and my mother would get in the cage and she was like a wild animal, and then it would become my brother and me, like as a magic trick. Then we did the suitcase act, it's true, with only our legs coming out. And then we were monsters and insects and stuff like that. It was fun and it was part of our reality. So it's only when we would go to school that I would realize that other children didn't grow up in the same way, but sometimes we'd meet with other circuses and there were children too. So it was our reality, and it was wonderful to be traveling. I'd open my window in the caravan and every other morning it'd be a different view, so it was nice. I don't know. That would surprise me with almost nothing, and it would be beautiful. An ideal day is. This could be an ideal day. I don't know. It would be a surprise a little bit. That would surprise me. Breakfast at home, coffee, but I'm supposed to stop coffee and have tea instead, so it's a bit. And then I don't know. If I could stay curious my whole life and have every morning a sensation that I'm going to discover something, I think that would be the ideal day. The rest it depends. It really depends where I am, if I'm with family, with friends. It depends. In Paris or elsewhere, my home at the moment, I have no idea where it is exactly. I'm a bit in between. I love to write as well, and maybe much later in my life there'll be a moment where I'll try to only travel differently, but not, not. Everybody writes, but I needed to keep grounded. It's my way. For the rest, I have no idea. I try to enjoy and see how far this one is going to go. On the internet, there was one that came back that I had posted a long time ago. Sometimes they repost a thing from like 2 years, 3 years. And it was a Russian proverb that said, even the past is unpredictable, which is a great one. Last year I did a production of, it was an adaptation of Last Metro from Truffaut, and we toured it for a year. And it's a different language. What you're trying to do on a stage remains the same, meaning there's a language and you have to translate it to an audience. It's different, but at the same time it was the same. It's another challenge, and but they're beautiful roles. Anything that is that deals with the complexity of human emotions, and you have beautiful characters in Russian literature and in Russian theatre that are absolutely beautiful. I did the reading of Chekhov, The Lady with the Dog, and I did that a few times with Denis Lavant and French actors. And that it's not theatre because it's a short story, but it's so well written. I don't do it often, but when I feel that I can try to defend it, I do it. First time I was in Moscow, I went to see a play. It was one line from a Dostoevsky novel, The Mother of Sonia in Crime and Punishment. And this woman had done a whole play around it. And I don't speak Russian, but she was so good that you didn't need, of course, I would have loved to hear the subtleties of the dialogue, but what she was expressing was so strong. I was completely taken by her performance. So when you ask about if you had nothing and you were in front of an audience, I think if you vibrate with something, the communication will always pass with words, with an object, it depends how you invest it, in other words, I think. I find stereotypes very scary, in general. People have stereotypes about me. I'm always careful with them because I find them dangerous and restrictive. And also because sometimes you become the stereotype if you're not careful. But for me, before coming to Russia, when I was a child and when I was a teenager, it was literature. I started reading when I was 9, 10 years old, and everything I could get my hands on. I was very passionate about reading. And so for me, Russia was Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Pushkin, Lermontov, Gogol. There was so many, beautiful Chekhov, so many beautiful work of arts in music, in theater, in literature. And I was crazy also about all the books by Henri Troyat. He wrote a lot of books about Russia, so I had a very romantic and passionate image of Russia, and so far it has proven to be true. So maybe I'm, but this is what my stereotype was personally. I'm very curious to learn more. It's always a discovery of another culture that's different and yet at the same time similar. It's always fascinating to try and honor and understand how it works. I love the dimension that they bring because it's another dimension a little bit. It's much more instinctive. It's a dimension that I like having around in my life. It's just on another level. They take the world a bit differently than us, and I like to have that around me. The elements, when it's the first days of sunshine, they take it with such beauty, and it reminds me that, oh, I have also to enjoy, or when the morning starts, or they have such a relationship with nature that, very sensuous actually, and I need animals around me. We don't have birds. I usually had birds all the time. Gaspard, and he was amazing. He was a crow, and he was. It's the first time in my experience that he went back into nature and he was accepted by the other crows. Usually, they reject them, but he managed to reintegrate. But for a few years, we don't have them because we don't buy them. Usually, they fall from the nest, and so you raise them, and no birds fall from the nest, which is probably a good thing for them. Didier has a dog, our administrator. He has a dog who comes on tour with us from time to time. Usually he's very blasé and he just watches everything, and he's very polite, but he yawns sometimes. Except for the part in the show where I'm completely, this beast takes my hand and does then he was suddenly and he came and he was just sniffing my hand and sniffing me just to see if I was okay, Now I have a cat, and Elliot, he was in the show before, and I didn't bring him to Russia because I was afraid with all the travels and all that, but he was in the show. It's the building would collapse and he would just be there, and sometimes he stretched, sometimes he ran, sometimes he did nothing. Sometimes he refused to go on stage, and he's a lot of fun. He loves hotel rooms and he loves dressing rooms, but he doesn't like he loves the train but not the car. In some cases, even we had articles where they only mentioned him, and I was this is unbelievable. And he was at the very end. But they say you should never put animals or children on stage because they take all the, all the spotlight. And now he's getting older and he doesn't want to travel. So my cat too. When I rehearse things, he's looking, but he's also like, what? You know? So I'm not sure it's my best audience.